Okay, it's 5:30. Good evening. I'm Linda Barnes-Caldwell, Councilwoman of the 5th District, and I would like to welcome you to the 5th District's Community Forum for September the 27th, 2021. This evening, our special guest is the Lake County Auditor, John Patalis, and he has one of his supervisors from the auditor's office, Leslie Jones, with him. So this right now, I'm going to go ahead, Mr. Patalis, and turn the meeting over to you and explain to the residents of Lake County what you do, what your office does, and how long you've been there and everything. So,
Okay.
Mr. Patalis, yeah.
Well, first of all, Linda, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite and the opportunity. I know when we first talked, primarily the reason for my coming on was because not a lot of people know what the auditor does. There's people out there that think because I have the title auditor that I can audit their taxes, and that's not the case. I've been a county auditor now for this will be the end of this year will be the 7th year. And of course, I'm limited to 2 terms, so my term would end at the end of next year. Basically, there's a lot of functions the auditor's office has, but specifically to get to the title, why is he called an auditor or she is called an auditor? One of the functions is is of course the bookkeeping department for the county. We process all the bills for every department in Lake County government, from as big a department as the sheriff down to something small like weights and measures. And so consequently, when the bills and the purchase orders come into our office for payment, our staff of bookkeepers is required to go through those bills again, item by item, and recalculate them and retotal them to make sure the vendor didn't make a mistake. So basically, they're auditing the bills, thus the term auditor. And that's originally how the position started many decades ago. But since then, they've added a variety of functions to the auditor's office. In all 92 counties, the auditor is considered first and foremost the chief fiscal officer of the county, and secondly, also he or she are considered the chief administrative officers of the county. All functions start and stop at the auditor's office. Besides our customer service department and the home and all the exemptions that they are responsible for providing to taxpayers, we have a billing department that handles refunds and giving people back credit on mistakes that were made on tax bills. We have a tax sale department, which is a kind of a facilitator for both tax sales, the treasurer's sale and the commissioner's sales. We have a real estate department where people can do change of addresses and where they can make name changes and other changes to their parcels. We have a drafting department where people can combine their parcels together. There are some people that have a home, but it may be on 2 or 3 parcels of land. We have the ability to combine it all into one parcel, and that way they have one key number and one bill. We calculate the tax bills. It's not the treasurer. You know, when people get a tax bill they don't like, they call the treasurer and scream at her, but she has absolutely nothing to do with calculating the tax bills. That's done by the auditor's office. And it's basically a complicated function that takes a couple months, and it involves compiling all of the budgets from the various cities and towns and political units, and the assessed values from the assessors, and with a formula combining all that together, and using their budgets, we come up with tax rates, and therefore we come up with a tax bill. So there's a lot of functions to this job. I've often told people, besides the functions that involve the general public, we also are responsible for the payroll of roughly 2,500 employees, and we also handle their questions on their pensions and insurance. And so we provide a lot of different services, and it's a very complicated office. I've often told people that if you want to shut down county government, all you have to do is have all the auditor's office employees walk out, and within 10 days, everything is shut down, because everything starts in that office. And unfortunately, it's a low key office to the extent that it doesn't get publicity like the sheriff or the prosecutor or some higher level office. And so not too many people know what it does. And that's just a nutshell that I could think of off the top of my head. And I have to tell you, when we talk dollars, we are processing an average of $1.3 billion a year through that office. Once we calculate the bills, and the bills are mailed out, and people pay their taxes to the county treasurer, and once the treasurer balances with their collections, it is then our responsibility to decide, of course, not through various calculations, how much the city of Gary will get, how much the township will get, and we do that for every governmental unit throughout Lake County. In fact,
So your office decides that amount.
Yeah, well, we calculate. We don't decide it. We calculate.
You calculate. Okay.
Yeah, we calculate it. So we actually have a whole new finance department. So we had a very successful first settlement on June 30th. And now we get to we're going to prepare for the second one, but we can't really do nothing until people pay tax bills in November. Usually the second one is a little bit more difficult, but we have a capable staff that's able to handle it.
Ms. Jones, did you want to kick in and share something or what you do in the office?
Sure, I can elaborate a little bit on what my department does. We're the customer service department, and we handle deductions. So we see those who first purchase a home or refinance their mortgage. They come in and see us and file for their homestead deduction as well as their mortgage deduction. We do offer other deductions that do have an income requirement as well as an assessed value requirement, and that is our over age 65 deduction. It goes by the taxpayer's income as well as the assessed value of their home. We have the blind and disabled deduction, and that one goes just by the applicant's income of what their yearly taxable income would be. And they just have to show proof, nothing real formal, but just proof of their disability, just a letter from their physician stating that they are disabled. Sometimes that's also stated on their Social Security paperwork, and we can use that as well as proof. We do have a disabled veteran deduction, and that one, they just fill out their certificate of eligibility with our veterans office, and they're able to come upstairs and file that deduction with us. One other one we have is our solar, wind, and geothermal deduction. So if they have any of those type of devices in their home, they can possibly qualify for a tax deduction in that one as well. But our largest one and most popular ones are the homestead and mortgage. Mostly everyone files that one because the only qualification for our largest deduction would be that they own the home and that they used it at their primary residence, and they're able to qualify for that homestead, which saves them almost half on those taxes.
Those
Yeah,
forms for any of these deductions, are they available on the website, or do you have to come in the office and do it?
Yeah, so our two major deductions, which is the homestead and the mortgage, they're able to file that online at lakecountyin.org. There is a $5.50 fee to file that online, but there's no fee to file those deductions with us in office.
And what information do you need? Just your paperwork that you said showing your income and your
Well,
mortgage payment?
if it's one of those that has an income requirement, they are required to bring in that income information. We don't keep any of that information on file in the office, but our staff does have to review and sign off that they do qualify and meet the state's requirements for that. But the homestead, the only thing they would need to bring in is their driver's license or state ID that reflects that address that they're putting the deduction on. And we get the last 5 digits of their social while they're there in the office. And we do that for them and their spouse if they're married. And then the mortgage is just a matter of bringing in that paperwork that shows the name of their lender, amount of loan, and you're able to get that small deduction if you do have a mortgage. But again, both of those two deductions, the homestead and mortgage, can be filed online. But the other ones that require income proof, they have to come in and see us.
it's important too for people to understand that they can't have more than one homestead exemption.
Yes, sir.
That is actually a criminal offense, and it can also cost you a lot of money because we are allowed to go back several years and recalculate the tax bills, and it has been done a lot because there are some people that try to scam the system and have 2, 3, or 4 homesteads, and eventually they get caught. I did notice one question about from somebody that I saw on the screen about whether they can have multiple over 65 exemptions, and I believe all the exemptions are only for the primary residence that you live in. So if you have rental
Yes,
properties,
sir.
yeah,
Except for one, and that would be our disabled veteran deduction.
yes,
That
yes,
disabled veteran deduction, that veteran can put that on any property that they do own.
right.
Just one homestead,
Yes.
one mortgage. Although you may have 2 homes, you can only do one mortgage,
Yes.
one homestead.
Well, there's a little small loophole with that one as well. When it comes to the mortgage deduction, if we have a married couple and they have 2 homes and they're both on both of those mortgage paperwork, then one spouse can file the mortgage on one parcel, the other spouse can file it on the other. But again, they both have to be on both of those mortgages paperwork in order to do that.
Okay.
Keep in mind the mortgage exemption, of course, it's a great thing to have, but it's not anywhere near as lucrative as homestead. Homestead will cut your tax bill in half. And a lot of people already have a homestead, so imagine if you didn't have one, your bill would double overnight. But the mortgage exemption is a little deceiving. It sounds like it's a big deal, but you know, we've done some calculations, and for the average homeowner, it's maybe $30 to $40 an installment, the savings. It's not as much as a lot of people think it is.
Ms. Jones, you was reading that question.
Yeah, I was. So I'm not sure if I read it all the way correctly, but I think the question was, are people on disability able to own a home and get a homestead?
Yes.
I'm gonna go with yes on that because we do have people that do own their homes and have their homestead in place as well as a disabled deduction in place.
I have a question about the taxes, and I don't know if it's your office or the treasurer's office. When a person gets behind on their taxes and they want to make that agreement or whatever
Yes.
it is it your office or is it the treasurer's office?
That is the treasurer's office, and it's up to each treasurer, how they handle it. I know that they do have a payment plan in place. It's typically used when people are on a tax sale. And so they can come in, assuming they've never defaulted on a payment plan before, and they'll come up with a small deposit. And it's been a while, but if my memory serves me correct, you have 12 months to pay it off. And it also automatically, once you sign the agreement, it automatically takes you off the tax sale.
Okay.
That's two ways to be taken off the tax sale. One is to have an agreement with the treasurer, and the second way, of course, the least desirable, if you can avoid it, is bankruptcy.
Um, the agreement, can anyone, just the person whose name is on the property? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Just that
yes,
person?
yes.
Okay. If it's a married couple and everybody's name isn't on it, just the person whose name is in, right? Or no?
You mean if it's and or on the property, either person can sign the agreement. But if it's, you know, John and Linda, it would have to be both.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sure. Okay. And that's the
Somebody
treasurer.
just flashed a quick question. The questions flash by so quickly, you don't get time to read them.
Would the office consider voluntarily giving the property tax sale overages back to the partial owner who lose their property on the tax sale? That is when the winning bid is more than the taxes owed.
To my knowledge, any overages uh, that are that exist, if there's a redemption on the property and there's an overage, the overage actually goes to the person who owned the property. And I don't know, because I'm not a lawyer and I try not to deal with the tax sales directly. If that is a statute, I don't believe it's a county rule. I believe it has to be somewhere in the code. But then again, that's something I could research for anybody who has that question. But typically, if you own a house and it goes up on tax sale, and for example, in a treasure sale, the starting bid is the amount of taxes owed. So let's say you owe $3,000, and that's where they'll start the bid. But for some reason, you may get a couple, 3, 4 people interested in your property, and they run that all the way up to, let's say, $10,000. The winning bid is $10,000. The redemption period for the treasurer is a year. At the end of the year, that overage, that difference of $7,000, if the property owner doesn't redeem the house, he'll lose the house, but the overage belongs to the property owner, the original property owner,
So,
which is really no consolation if they lose their house, but they do get that money.
oh, okay.
But it doesn't happen very often. It's typically properties that are on a treasure sale. The treasure sale always comes first, and I believe this year's was it's typically in September, and those are the properties that everybody wants, but at the end of the day, nobody gets because they're normally always redeemed.
What is
Whatever.
the difference? I'm sorry, what is the difference between the treasurer sale and the commissioner sale?
The treasure sale, the bid starts at the amount of taxes owed,
Okay.
and there's a 1-year redemption period for the homeowner to come back and get his or her property. Whatever doesn't sell on the treasurer's sale will then go to a commissioner's sale, which typically is about March or so, April of the following year. And at that point, the bidding starts as low as maybe $500. And the redemption period is 4 months. So that is the difference between the two. What you get in a lot of cases is a lot of companies, and they're all over the United States, that key in on treasure sales throughout the country, because they'll buy $1, $2, or $3 million worth of properties on a treasure sale, not for the purpose of reselling them and making a profit on the real estate. Their purpose is to make a profit off of the sale after it's redeemed, because if it's redeemed, the person who buys the property to begin with will get 5% interest on their money. So you can see, if you have a company that's buying $1 million worth of properties, or two million, that could be lucrative for them. And sometimes they get stuck with a piece of property and they sell it, or they don't do anything with it. They just let it go back on a tax sale. But for the most part, they're interested in some house in Briar Ridge in Munster that's worth $1 million, that for some reason, they're behind on their tax payments, but they are fairly confident that the homeowners are gonna redeem it. And then, of course, they will make money off the interest.
Any other questions? Are there any candidates running for auditor other than yourself?
I cannot run for auditor again. So at this point in time, there is no, there's all types of rumors, and the government center's full of rumors, but there's nobody that's declared for sure that they're going to run.
And you said your term is up at the end of this year?
Next year.
Next year.
Next year. I may consider a run for treasurer. I just don't know if I'm ready to sit home and retire yet.
Okay.
And if I do, it might just be for one term, and then that would be the end of that.
Okay. Have you been
Yes,
treasurer
the answer to
before?
that
Yeah.
question is yes. Yes, I've been treasurer only once. I used to be the Maryville clerk treasurer for 14 years. And way back in the day when Bob Stiglich passed away, and he was replaced in the auditor's office by caucus, he was replaced by the treasurer at that time. And so a vacancy existed in the treasurer's office, and I won it by caucus. And consequently, a year later, I had to run in the public election, and I won that as well. And that's been my only stint as county treasurer. 7 years ago, it's been a while, but yeah, I've only been county treasurer one time.
What is your role with commissioners? You said that, I'm sorry, yeah, the commissioners. You said that pretty much the auditor's office, if it stops, everything stops running. So
Yeah, and I mean that in the sense that because we handle payroll and because we pay all the bills for the county, if the auditor's office staff were to suddenly get the blue flu, it could be a very big financial issue with the county. Although we would make sure that never happens, and we have a good staff. I only bring that up to emphasize the importance of the office itself. In a lot of other counties, except Lake County for some reason, but in most other counties, after the sheriff and the prosecutor, they consider the auditor the most important office.
How many employees do you staff?
Including part-time, we have 40 employees.
Four. Okay. One office, two offices, how many?
The auditor only has one office. It's at the main government center in Crown Point.
Okay. And how will we contact you?
You can call well, first of all, of course, you can go if you want, but you can call our main line, 219. In fact, I'll give you my personal number, 755-3901. And I did see a question flash on the screen.
It's two of them.
The one I saw was the one about the interest.
Okay.
And the question about, I think it used to be 10%, and that's the case. It used to be. The Indiana General Assembly reduced that down to 5%.
Says, what's your opinion about the Cook County phone bank in which that county voluntarily give to citizens without asking property tax refunds and overages payments?
Yeah, I like the idea. I know Maria Papa, she's the Cook County treasurer, and I know that they're able to do things in Illinois that in Indiana they won't let us do. And so they have the ability to actually call people and basically surprise some of them and tell them that they have refunds coming. We don't have the ability, not that we don't have the ability, we don't have the authority by statute to do something like that.
So what do your refunds go to, the unclaimed with the Attorney General's office?
It will go. We do make a very solid effort to contact people. And that's what our billing department would do. In the event that we can't, that's when it would go to the unclaimed section of the Secretary of State's office.
Secretary of State, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, here's another one. It's my understanding that claims for overages not made in 2 years is kept by the county.
I believe that is correct on the overages, yes. And again, on the overages, the county makes a very concerted effort to help find people. But, in some cases, you have properties that were sold on the sale that are vacant and abandoned. And they've been vacant and abandoned for years. And there's just no way of getting a hold of the owner. There's no way of tracking them down or even knowing if the owner is in the area anymore. But we do have a 2-year leeway on that. And then after that, it does go to county general. Or actually, it actually doesn't go directly to county general. It's put back into the tax sale fund. And at settlement time, it's distributed back to the communities where that property is located.
Just want to say, okay. Linda Collins Brown, precinct committeeman for the 5th district. I can't tell you which number. She's just saying thank you. This session is very informative and she appreciates it.
Yes, she's very welcome. And like I said, our office is basically administrative in nature. as is the treasurer's office. We can't set policy, we have statute. And we also have to follow certain county ordinances that the county council or the commissioners may approve. You're a councilwoman. You can build a park or have something tangible for people to see and use. We basically are paper shufflers by statute, but we do provide a service because all the funds for all of these governmental units, regardless of how big or small, have to be collected and distributed between the auditor and the treasurer.
Okay, yeah, overage that you send back to the cities, it goes back to our general fund, or if the treasurer distributes it?
What we do is we just make it part of your tax settlement.
Okay.
And then it's, obviously, I would imagine most of the money goes to your general fund, and everybody gets a portion of it. So in reference to what Mr. Allen was saying, yes, the county gets a portion of it too. If you look at your tax bill now, it's a pie chart. The county gets a little bit, the city gets a little bit, the school system gets a little bit. It all gets divvied up.
So we have discussed the sales, the treasurers and the commissioners. We've discussed all the deductions and exemptions that people can get. We have a few of them. We can go online and get the homestead and the mortgage exemption paperwork.
Yes.
And you said we can do that on the website. And what's your
Yes.
website?
Yes, lakecountyinn.org. And then, of course, you would go over to the auditor's icon, and from that point, it'll guide you. And the staff is pretty good. Actually, they're excellent when it comes to following up with the online information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me see. You handle payroll, pension, insurance, everything that works at the county.
Yeah.
You do that.
Since the county commissioners created a human resources department, some of the pension information and health insurance information is now handled by that department, but the payroll functions are entirely by statute in charge, are the responsibility of the auditor. So what we do is, because there are so many employees, the IT department for the county assists us with the payroll and making sure that the checks get out to all the employees. One new thing that we're doing here very soon now, I don't know the exact date, but all employees are going to be required to get their checks directly deposited. We're trying to eliminate the mail and the extra paperwork, and we're also eventually going to be doing the same thing with our bills that we pay our vendors with. We have a new system, a computer system that will be installed right now. Part of the staff is training on it. It's called the Oracle, and I believe the county has invested nearly $5 million for it. It will pay vendors automatically. It will do a lot of things automatically that will eliminate a lot of paperwork. We'll still need the staff, but you won't have storehouses full of paperwork like we do now. I actually have a pole barn across the street from the government center where all of this paperwork is located, and it goes back many, many years. We also, I forgot to mention, in the office, are responsible for taking the minutes of the commissioners and also the minutes of the county council. And we also have a lot of archives there located, a lot of old paperwork that goes back to the beginning of time. We had somebody just last week that was inquiring about information about Sheriff Holly, who was the sheriff when John Dillinger broke out of jail. And so we actually had the information and were able to provide the records that were needed. So we have a lot of information that we can provide to the public. And if we can't, because we're an agency that has a large customer service department, if a taxpayer is kind of lost and isn't sure where they have to go, if they contact our office, we can help you. Now, the phone number for the customer service department is 219-755-3151. And well, that's what it says in the brochure, Leslie. I see you're ready to say something. You're muted, hon. Hold on.
Yes, we
There
have
you
to
are.
change that. That customer service number is 219-755-3120.
20 now, okay.
Yeah, so we'll get that updated in that brochure.
Oh, yeah, we need to update that, yeah. And then also, somebody asked about the previous number. That was my line. It's 219 area code 755-3901.
Mr. Portales, how many employees are at Lake County at the government center?
You know, they're scattered all over the place. It's not just the government center itself. But then you got to include parks, highway. A lot of those are off-site.
Okay.
I would have to say close to 3,000. Yeah. And some of them, most of them, I would say at least, I would say at least 800 of them are part of the sheriff's department. The majority of those would be correctional officers, and then a couple hundred, maybe 300 police officers. Now the jail is a big operation, and that would be a good person to have, would be Sheriff Martinez. But I remember back in the day when I was a young man, the jail on a good day would have maybe after a weekend, maybe 200 or 300 inmates. And now it's averaging well over 1,000, pretty much on a daily basis. A lot more sophisticated than it used to be because it has to have a medical ward. And again, a long time ago, regular policemen manned the jail. They were not professional COs or correction officers. Now they have professionally trained correctional officers, and so the costs for the sheriff's department, they've gone up significantly. But law enforcement is an expensive proposition nationwide, especially when you have a jail that size. And there are some cities and towns that don't have their own local jail, and so they transport their prisoners to the county jail, and the county sheriff is thereby responsible for housing them until they go to court, which, depending on the case, they may be there they might be in there for a couple years before they actually have a trial.
And do we get a stipend from those cities for housing those?
The ones that can afford it, yes, but there are some that can't, and so the answer to that is we just deal with what the taxpayers out of those cities pay us to begin with,
Okay.
to cover the cost. I know that the federal government uses the jail also. I know the federal marshals bring in inmates, federal inmates, and now the federal government does pay the county for that service to house their inmates. So, and then again, our function as far as the sheriff's department is concerned is to make sure all their bills are paid, and they have a lot of bills. I got to tell you, it's just the nature of the beast.
Well, I don't see any more questions right now, and you've given us definitely an earful.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on a couple things if I'm allowed, if I have time.
You are, please,
Okay,
please.
sure. So back in the day when I was treasurer, I dislike sales of any type because I just don't like trying to take away people's homes. So we were very liberal with the payment plans, but I had tried for several years to pass an amnesty bill, uh, similar to what the state did or sometimes does with state sales tax, so that people could pay. One of the Republican chairs there. And with Earlene in the meeting, within a week, it passed a House or a Senate committee. And so we did have the amnesty bill. It was only up to each county to decide if they wanted it. Unfortunately, from what I recall, out of the 92 counties, Lake County was the only one that participated. But we were able to save at least 300 people their homes. And to this day, when they see us, they thank us. And then to his credit, Senator Melton, I believe last year, he did put an effort for try and revive the bill. Again, with the same criteria, leaving it up to the various counties, because there were some counties that are just sticklers and don't want to give people a break, no matter what the case may be. But we had so many people that we just felt it was the right thing to do, and it did work out well at the time. The other thing that I wanted to say is I'm not completely thrilled with our tax sale process. Not so much with the treasurer's sale, because I don't have a lot to say about that. In fact, both sales, the treasurer and commissioner, our role is basically a role that has to do with vetting bidders and with collecting registrations for the sale. And I am looking at some changes in that regard that I'm going to try to discuss with our legal counsel, because I think that some of the rules are that have been set by county ordinance are a little bit too stringent as far as people being allowed to bid if they've had a previous delinquency. My contention is that yes, if you've owed taxes in the past, you should not be allowed to bid, but for how long? Right now, the way the county ordinance is written, it's forever. And I kind of personally have an issue with that. And hopefully in the near future, we might be able to make some changes in that regard, if I can get enough people to support it.
Well, you have a very common counsel here, and if we can be of assistance, because it's very important that the residents are able to keep their homes.
Yes. Yes.
We can't always control our finances and what happens.
And clean them up and make them part of their property. And, we're all for helping people do that as much as we can.
Yeah, we have that side lot program in the city because we have so many residents that maintain that piece of property on the side of them. I
Sure.
want my area to look good and this area over here, so I'm taking care of it. So we have that side lot program, and I truly understand. Yes.
Yeah, it's easier, to go through the process of asking the commissioners to donate some of these properties to the city, and avoid the process of actually having homeowners go through this vetting and bidding process. And then once the city gets them, then they're in a position where they can more reasonably give these properties away or sell them for $1 or $100, whatever the case may be, and get them back on the tax rolls. And I know we have given several properties to the city of Gary. We've given a lot of properties to the city of East Chicago, and they've done an excellent job, though, redeveloping those properties and to townhouses and different types of housing that's affordable for people. And then, of course, they have their own incentives too, where they give you money to move into the city and whatnot, or to buy one of these properties. But not everybody's able to do that.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Patalis or Ms. Jones? Is there anything else you would like to share?
Well, like I said, it's not a glamorous office. I can't sit up here and tell you about the, any interesting crime story, but the only thing that I would like to tell the public is that we are there and we serve multiple functions. Do not be afraid to come to the office or call. We do have staff that will help you. And chances are definitely that the first people you will deal with are the customer service department. And they are trained not only to do the homesteads, although that's their primary function, they are also trained to answer any questions a taxpayer may have in another office or direct them to the proper office. And in a lot of cases, we actually will take a taxpayer to another governmental unit in the building if they need assistance.
Well, we thank you for your hard work and your dedication.
Thank you.
And you said this is your second term in the auditor's office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was a 2-year or 4-year?
It's 2 4-year terms.
Okay.
It's kind of odd. There's some offices in county government that have unlimited terms. You can be prosecutor, you can be commissioner, county councilman, surveyor, assessor for the rest of your life if you choose. But then there are some that are constitutional offices like mine where you're only allowed the 2 terms. You can always come back, but you would have to sit out 4 years in order to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, we thank you. You have been just wonderful. Just told us everything we needed to know. Ms.
Right.
Jones, you just smiling. I see you
Yes.
smiling at the customer service desk.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I hope this meeting has enlightened a lot of the residents and shared information with us that we didn't know. And we have your personal number to your desk. And if we need to give you a call, we certainly will. And I may be giving you a call tomorrow because
Okay.
I may have a question
Well,
for you.
Tomorrow I have a little surgical procedure I have to do.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
we'll send a prayer up for you. Yes.
Thank you. I noticed a little message there from John Allen about the 5%, and I need to honestly research that. because I know the law has changed when it comes to penalties. You know, and I may be confusing it with the interest paid to a buyer. So I can probably research that, and when I talk to you, I'll give you the information. You can pass it on to Mr. Allen, or he's more than welcome to call me.
Okay, well, again, we thank you so much for sharing your evening with us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
each of you all for coming out this evening, joining us for the Zoom meeting. Have a good evening.
You too.